Hi everyone, this is Jamie versus Chaz. Let's get into it. So, Queen's Gambit. Okay, we got the Slav defense. So far, so good. Yep. Bishop f5. What? Okay, so in the Slav, Black generally takes this pawn because otherwise there are big issues. You can't just bring the bishop out straight away like this. White ends up with a dominating position. So generally, you take the pawn first, and the threat is to play b5 and hanging onto your pawn. So, often a4 is the sort of thing you see. And then the bishop can come out, and the knight and the bishop both prevent e4. And by playing it this way, you actually prevent this annoying queen b3 idea. And that's the main Slav line. Now, if you don't want to go into that and you want to maintain a pawn on d5, you really have to leave the bishop back on c8 and play something like e6 and go into a semi-Slav type position. There's quite a few very complex semi-Slav lines. However, playing bishop f5 straight away is a big no-no. And white start off right, takes, and e3. What? The move has got to be queen b3. I mean, this is just devastating. Like, the idea is you're threatening to just take this. And that's, I mean, how do you deal with that? It's a problem. You can't, I mean, apart from retreating the bishop, which is just an obvious loss of a move, and it's going to lead to an amazing position for white. You can't defend it by playing queen c8 because that leaves the d5 pawn on. A move like b6, for instance, you just get absolutely slaughtered by something like e4. Knight e5, I think, is also very strong, but e4. And, let's say it's that they say, oh, wow, free pawn. What happens is the knight comes in here and threatens a nasty little checkmate on this square. If they play e6, because the e-pawn is moved, your bishop has been released, so you can throw this check in. And, I mean, how does black even handle this? If you try and play knight here, for instance, bishop g5 is very strong looking. It's just pinning the knight to the queen and threatening to win a free knight. You can see black is on the verge of losing a piece. If he unprotects it, you can just how do you play this? I think you can just rip this knight off, and it's a case of you've just removed the defender, and then you can just take on d7. So if he takes here, then just and white's a piece up. It's very easy to win a piece in this situation. That's why you play knight there. I think the only other thing he could try is bring this knight back here so there's no pin anymore. And, I mean, apart from the fact that black is going to have great difficulty developing his army, a move like g4 is kind of very difficult to deal with because you're just threatening to win the bishop. If the bishop drops back here, h4, you're threatening to trap the bishop. And the problem is you can't create an escape square for the bishop without leaving this pawn vulnerable. For example, h6, you can just rip the bishop off. And, if he takes, then the queen comes into here. So this idea of going g4, h4 and threatening to trap the bishop allows you to, to get at this pawn here. So this is all, quite well-known stuff, actually. If the bishop tries to come out early without swapping on its e4, queen b3 is virtually always the answer. I mean, what else can be done? I mean, queen b6 loses a pawn as well. You just knight takes. Sure, they can swap queens, but then whoops, no, not that. They can swap queens, and you can just trade knights and then get your queen back. So, you end up with doubled isolated pawns, but you actually end up with a half-open A file, and you are a pawn up still. So, yeah, it's just good for white. So anyway, where was I? Let's just get rid of all these variations. Bye. So e3, trapping your own bishop in, and missing the opportunity to slam queen b3 out there. It's can't say I like that. e6 is looking pretty level now. In fact, I mean, because this bishop's trapped in, black's position might be better, but he has to be careful. The problem with putting your bishop outside the pawn chain which is supposed to be the right way to play, is that you have to be always careful of this bishop getting trapped with g4, h4 ideas, particularly if a knight comes in and tries to lop this off. So black is going to have to waste a move at some point, playing an early h6 or something. Okay, so white played white threw the knight into e5 straight away, and black just probably has to do something about the idea of g4, h4. And if you can just handle that, I mean, you can even play h5 here, and that just ends the whole g4 nonsense right from the start. And and this position, it might even be better for black. Maybe not. I mean, the engine's still liking white. This bishop long term seems like it's not going to do anything. And yeah, I'm surprised. I'm just sort of knocked out by the fact that the engine's liking white even after all that. Okay, no matter. Let's move on. Bishop d6. Now, there's real danger here. Big danger. Yeah, like g4 just looks scary. Because the problem is, I mean, if you just retreat, which is what happened. In fact, we'll wait and see what happens after he retreats. But the only move he really has here is to take the knight here, and after this, retreat the bishop back somewhere, d6 or c7 or something. And then yeah, white can probably rip this off and then chuck out bishop h3, and this pawn is very uncomfortably placed. It's actually incredibly uncomfortable because this queen b3 idea is still possible, and once the queen gets to b3, you're looking at something like e4, and this pawn weakness, it's actually huge. And once this pawn charges up and the center starts to open, these two bishops are going to just dominate the bishop and knight combo. So, for example, you go queen here to defend the pawn, which is a natural sort of move. The queen jumping to b3, is that maybe not so soon. Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, you could go f4. I mean, you can always just play it like this if you want to, and just clamp down on that square, and then looks to slowly, put pressure on this pawn later on. It's an interesting one. So bishop h3, queen e7. What about e4 straight away? The queen b3 doesn't do much straight away. What about e4? The idea is you want him to take you, so you can throw out queen b3, and there'll be no way to defend this pawn. So if he takes with the pawn straight away, then you go queen b3, and you're going to win this pawn here. And the position is opened up, and this is starting to look a little bit overextended, like it's gonna be taken. So this is definitely doomed, and this one might be doomed. Black might be able to get some pressure on this isolated d pawn, but it's looking good for white. For example, castles. The queen can plonk itself in here, and queen takes, bishop takes. This is probably this is playable for black. Black can put up a good fight here. I would say very slight advantage to white. It's not reflected in the engine. The engine says it's dead equal. But I think those two bishops are just going to get stronger and stronger as the game unfolds. Okay, so bishop takes e5. I think that was black's only way to play. And as you can see, it leads to an equal material position, which I think is better for white, but definitely playable. Instead, he played bishop g6, and this is just I don't know. This is just awful for black, because after h4, which was played, the threat is to just trap the bishop. And you can't even lop this knight off now because the pawn takes back, and while black is wasting time saving his knight from the pawn that's on e5, let's just play it. The move h5 is coming in next move, so the knight moves, and then bam, you've just won yourself a piece. So there's the only way to not lose a piece is to play either h6 or h5, which is yuck. H6, and that was what was played in the game. This knight took here, this pawn took here. This is going to be a weakness, and all these light squares here are a weakness as well. But this g6 pawn is looking like it's in big trouble. Moves like queen c2, for instance, bishop d3, or both of them together is very hard to deal with. So after bishop d3, Yeah, see, I kind of like queen c2 straight away. You know, if knight takes pawn, then you've got queen takes g6 with the queen fork on the 2. But bishop d3 should be fine. Because after queen moves, yeah, this pawn has not got a defender anymore. Oops. So king f7 was played, defending the pawn. And now queen c2 straight away looks so tempting. Just say give up the g pawn. Just say go ahead, take it. And this is such a difficult position for black to play. You know, if his king goes into g8, that rook is never coming out. If it sits in f8, white could probably just start opening the position up with a move like e4, threatening to win a pawn straight away. The pawn can't take, of course, because the queen takes with a queen fork on the knight and the pawn. It's yuck. Yeah, queen c2 looks very strong. It wasn't what was played though. So king f7 was played. What was played? f4. Yeah, I don't know. I'm analyzing it. I'm looking at it. It does. I mean, I think the idea might be to kick this knight away and then throw the queen into c2 and just try and win that pawn outright. The biggest problem is it gives black that one extra move he needs to get knight c6 in here, so the knight can jump to e7 and defend the g-pawn. That's why I liked queen c2 straight away. So yeah, black right here should play knight c6, and white should still be much better. I mean, these pawns these weaknesses aren't going anywhere. But black can put up some sort of defense. It's very, very hard for black. It's very easy to find good moves for white. It's very hard to find good moves for black. So what he played was queen d7. That does not solve the problem at all. So yeah, g5 was played, saying goodbye knight. The knight moves, and then yeah, now the queen can jump into c2. Is there a problem with knight here, knight there? Probably not. Whoops. Queen c2 looks pretty good to me. If the knight hits the rook, you can just throw this check in. The king has to move, and then the rook gets out of danger next move. You got a few choices: g1, h3, yeah, g1 maybe, and white's just a pawn up. You know, the knight can drop back here if it wants to, and white can just start trading. He ends up with a very bad e3 pawn and a very bad bishop, but he is a pawn up, and all he has to do is plonk a knight on e5, and that pawn weakness is never a problem. And if black ever takes that knight with anything, you end up with a connected pass pawn. But it is quite a few bit of maneuvering, knight there to there to there to there, or something like that is required to get a knight in there. But I don't see how black is undeveloped. Black can't get pressure against white while white is doing all this maneuvering. So yeah, queen c2 straight away looks good to me. However, white decided to play rook g1 first to keep the knight out of here, but that gives black the move he needs to play knight c6, so that queen c2 can be answered by knight e7. He can keep it defended. You know, and if you take here, he can take back with a rook, and the rook keeps it defended, and he's managed to just hang on to that pawn. Not that his position's any good. You can see white very slowly building up with doubling the rooks on the g-file and eventually winning this thing. But black has got a knight sitting in here and harassing the h-pawn. Once this knight moves, the rook will be harassing this pawn, so black can get counterplay here. So it wouldn't surprise me if the engine's analysis that it's equal is actually true. It's much harder for black to play. So engine analysis is often misleading. Okay, so instead of playing knight c6, which I think is pretty much forced here, he went and played queen e7. And now black is in so much trouble. Queen c2, yeah, exactly right. This can't be defended now. There's no way to save it. So black took this pawn here. Does he have any other options? He doesn't really have any option. Everything's bad. Can he get his rook out of the corner so his king can at least... Oh no, because you're threatening bishop here, forking king and knight. Ugh, this is terrible. So he plays pawn takes pawn, so the rook is defending the knight. And after bishop takes here, the king went to g8, g8, f8. Yeah, they're both looking pretty awful. And yeah, now the rook zoomed in and took the pawn. Now he's threatening to take this knight. And yeah, the knight just played the natural move, f6. But with this king here, there's quite a lovely tactic. And well done, Jamie. Jamie found it. Good stuff. You might want to have a look at it. Just ignore the engine analysis. The move, yeah, he played knight there. Brilliant queen clearance sacrifice. Moving the knight out of the way of the queen, so the queen's threatening to zoom up the c file. Even though the knight can be taken by two different things, it doesn't matter. Black took the knight, and the queen zoomed up, jumped into here, and that's game over. The cool idea being that if the queen jumps into f8, the queen goes into e6. And yeah, poor Black has to block with his queen, and then you've got mate to follow. And the only other way out of that check is to, maybe put the knight in the way on e8, something like that, and it just throws away a piece. And you don't even take with the queen, you take with the bishop, threatening the discovered attack. Bishop there, and then grab a pawn and then a rook or something. Well, that's obviously bad. But yeah, obviously it's just losing for Black. So in this position, Black, after queen c8, Black resigned. So yeah, pretty cool combination to finish the game off. That's excellent play by White there. And Black, yeah, few things to learn there in the opening. I think both players could learn a few things about this opening. I don't think this e3 move is a good way to play for White. I think queen b3, as I've outlined. And Black, yeah, if you're going to play the Slav and get this bishop outside the pawn chain like this, yeah, you just can't. If you want to get the bishop out here, you're going to have to take on c4 first, play an exchange on c4, and go into those mainline Slav lines like this, and then the bishop can come out like that. Okay, so that's all for this game. I hope you all enjoyed that and learned something. Goodbye.